And we are back. Yes, it's your host, Isaiah. Welcome to the O&B Puckcast episode number 276, brought to you by FlyersNittyGritty.com, Summit Adjusters, Jim South Street, and of course, we are featured on Hockey Hot Stove, the hottest hockey forum website out there. And if you go there to hockeyhotstove.com, scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see the insignia of the O&B Puckcast. You click on there, and it will take you right to all of our YouTube shows. And of course, we are live tonight on YouTube. And if you could give us a like, if you could subscribe, hit that notification bell so you'll know when the next O&B Puckcast is going to be on. We really do appreciate it. And of course, we are also live streaming tonight on X and Facebook. And we say hello to all of our viewers tonight. We have a special guest. And of course, we want to start with the fact that the Flyers went 3-2. We had a little bit of a break there. We tried to get together. We couldn't, but the Flyers entertained us in the meantime, for the most part. They're now 4-3-1 after 8 games, coming off a shootout victory over the Islanders this past Saturday, a thrilling game for sure. So, Chef B, you were playing hurt tonight, intense dentistry that you had to deal with. What's your first words tonight, if you can speak through all the Novocaine?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. So I will say this, at the beginning of the season, I thought that the Flyers were going to hang around a little more than they weren't, and that they might actually break their record for the amount of games that went to overtime this season. And so far that is holding true, my prediction. So, but it's been, it's been entertaining hockey. It's been really fun hockey. And you know what? That's great. And, I know it's early to be talking about any of the other stuff, but it's just, I just want to tell people everybody's critical about everything, even when they're winning or playing decent. So just enjoy it, man. It's hockey's back and it's fun. So enjoy it.
You got it. The great Dan Silver joining us. How are you doing?
I'm good. Chef may make more sense with the Novocaine and the hallucinogenics and the dentist gave him than he normally does. We could be in for a treat. But no, I'm excited. We've got, obviously Jason with us. And, I know he's the goaltending extraordinaire. One thing that stuck out to me was those big Sam Ersson saves in the last game were great to see. So that was something I really enjoyed, those 2 big saves. I'm sure we'll get into it more, but fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get rolling and bring Jason on, we just want to remind you that the Summit Adjusters is the place you want to go, the people you want to call if you have home damage. And Chef, why don't you just remind the people once again why they should call Summit Adjusters instead of just picking up the phone and calling the insurance company?
Well, the reason why, and the most predominant reason why, is you could get denied for just saying the wrong word. What their guys do is they'll come out, they'll assess your situation. It's free of charge. They come out and tell you exactly what you need. They'll tell you the process, approximately like how long it will take. And guess what? You don't have to deal with the insurance company. They handle everything for you. So if you have any kind of home damage, and we got a big one coming up, what is it, Melissa? It's got a name, and it ain't going to be like the Almond song. It's not going to be Sweet Melissa. It's going to be a lot of rain, a lot of wind, all that stuff. So tell you what, give them guys a call at 215-752-0560. They'll come out. They'll take care of you. They'll do the best job for you possible. 215-752-0560. Tell them that the chef sent you.
You got it. Without any further delay from the Flyers Broadcast Network, Jason Myrtetus joining us. How you doing, man?
Doing good. Enjoying the season. Everything underway so far. There's some things I think we're all trying to learn, kind of who's who and what's what, and these seasons take on kind of lives of their own. You get the Penguins tomorrow night, and they're 6-2-1. Like what? Did they turn back the clock? Malkin's got 14 points in 9 games. Are you kidding me? And you look at it and you go, okay, Flyers Penguins early in the season, divisional game, 9-10 at home. The Flyers are 4-1 at the now Xfinity Mobile Arena. Maybe it just took a name change. I don't know. I'm trying to learn kind of who's who and what's what. Get our feet under us this season. It's small sample size still, but I've liked what I've seen. It's been an exciting brand of hockey, and it certainly feels good giving up 15 less goals in the first 8 games than it did a year ago. Yeah. That'll help you win a few more.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, that's been really the top story. But before we get into that, just today's news, obviously, the big deal is that Jett Luchanko, the Flyers finally pulled the trigger and said, "Yeah, we've had enough of it. This kid needs to get back and get more playing time." He goes back to Guelph, and they talked about that. And I wanted to get your feelings about that. And maybe if you think there's somebody in the offing who might be added to the roster at some point, maybe on the road trip.
Yeah, I mean, I think you wait till the road trip because you bank as much, unless you have an injury, obviously, but and you bank as much cap space as you can because their affiliates so close by. It's easy to call somebody up. They throw the bag in the trunk and they get a ride, so they can be here with late notice and you can add them. But you bank that cap space. I think that I don't know how much the lower body injury, or I think it was like an ankle or something that Jett was dealing with, or a groin. Affected it. He just didn't look as close this year as he did last year. And I think we also have to remember the Torts PR machine was not behind him this year that it was last year as well. So I think the opportunities were a little bit different. And what Rick Tocchet wanted to do was a little bit different too. So the fact of the matter is the kid just turned 19. He needs to play. You need to play. If he was going to stay here, I was fine. If he was going to stay here and you're going to play him 68 games, but if you weren't going to play him 68 games, then it didn't make sense. And I thought maybe he'd stay a little longer just because, you can keep him here. And if injury does happen, that can force your decision to the other side. But they made the decision to send him back. And I don't know. Maybe there's a facilitation of a trade to get him out of Guelph. They're not as bad as they were last year, but still not the perfect place for him because the AHL would be that. But that rule's not in effect yet, so we must not even talk about it because it's not an option right now. So I'm a little surprised that I know Bill mentioned on Flyers Daily today, rather the decision comes sooner than later. I would have been fine waiting a little longer. But the fact of the matter is the kid's got to play. You're not going to get better if you're not playing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing is, Shep, before I go to you, I don't think, and you said, I really like the point about Tortorella kind of in his corner last year. I wonder if he was a driving force behind the Flyers signing him as early as they did, which didn't
Torts loved his legs.
Benefit.
Loved his legs. Yeah, I love the skating.
Yeah. And I don't think, and it's not a knock on Jett, he was young for his class, so he's never
2 weeks older than a Martone, by the way.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. There you go. He never earned his way to the NHL at any point, in my opinion. He just wasn't ready. It was just all too soon. Yes, right. And it's okay. It's okay. So, I mean, that's kind of like, this is what's best. And if I kept saying that it looks like Guelph is going to be better this year, according to what I read, it turns out they're kind of like more towards a 500 club, maybe a little better. Maybe there will be a trade. Anthony Sanfilippo was talking something about, well, they're going to have the Memorial Cup in either Guelph or Kitchener next year. So therefore, that may facilitate the circumstances where Guelph feels like, okay, we have this Luchanko, let's get some assets so we can load up for next year. That could happen, right?
Nope,
so, there's a little bit more in play than people, Mike meets the eye. Chef, you go ahead.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Do you think that this whole thing is, did the Flyers, I don't want to say that they were using it as leverage against Guelph, but do you think there was like, hey, a wink and a nod, perhaps saying, hey, look, let's get them either some help down there to play with, better class of guys, or is there some nod and wink agreement that he's going to maybe moved a little bit later in the season?
I mean, look, I think that NHL teams can have influence on CHL teams, but ultimately a CHL team, which is why the rules have been in place the way it has been, is because they're a separate non-NHL owned entity. They're there to make money. And the fact of the matter is they'll have to do the sheets on the spreadsheets on, do they make more money if they're hosting the Memorial Cup with a better team next year versus being a slightly better team this year because you have Jett Luchanko. So I think there's influence that's implied at times. I'm not naive to that by NHL clubs, but I don't think it goes into your decision ultimately, because you can't hold a team up. You got to do what's best for the player and on the timeline that's best going to help his long-term his long-term development. That's the big key.
Yeah.
Is it's not a race to the NHL. It's a get there when you're supposed to get there and stay there and be as good of an NHL player as you can be. It's not a race. You'd rather him get there sooner in some cases. Drafting Jett, I think he's still ahead of their schedule from when they drafted him. Maybe that schedule gets altered a little bit after year one, but all in all, I don't think he's ready for the league yet on a full-time basis. The AHL is not an option, so back to Guelph you go, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people keep talking about how they didn't want to send him back to Guelph because, and I'm not saying the Flyers didn't, but just people in general, because of the team, and they're not a great team. I mean, everything I hear that they want him to work on, you listen to Rick Tocchet today, and he's like, hey, I want him to be more aggressive offensively, right? He uses his legs in a manner that really helps him develop his defensive game. And he's very solid defensively, but we need to see more offense from him and taking more risks. And they talk all the time about him needing to shoot more. I don't understand why the fact that Guelph isn't a very good team negatively hampers his ability to do that, right? If they want him to be more aggressive offensively and use his speed, well, his line mates aren't going to matter as much. To some degree, if he's forced to be the guy, you would think that maybe that will help him become a little more selfish and shoot the puck a little bit more. And I understand that it certainly can be frustrating not playing with players that are of your sort of skill level around you. And you've got Jack Nesbitt's playing with a kid who's going to be a top 10 pick in the draft next year. Obviously, that's an advantage. And Porter Martone is playing with Caden Lindstrom at times. So those are good things, right? But I think that for what they're trying to get Jett Luchanko to develop, that offensive aggressiveness, I don't think it's a bad thing that he's got to be the guy there at times,
Yeah, I think sometimes like Guelph gets painted as like this hodgepodge, like bad news bears type of situation of the CHL. I mean, look, he can go there and work on those things. He can go there and work on, not just being a playmaker and play driver, but being a scorer, because there's not a lot of other options of deference. You don't have to defer because you don't have, guys like if you looked at London last year, right, as a great example, in the London Knights, you could defer for that club. You don't need to defer for Guelph. So he can do what he needs to do there. It's incumbent upon him and the communication between the Flyers and Guelph management and the Guelph coaching staff to do that. And that, I have every faith that that'll happen if he remains there. Mm-hmm. And I agree with Dan. Like it's not this, Guelph's not some total gong show. Like he's going to, bad boy camp.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, just because we just played the Islanders, it's fresh in my memory. You saw a lot of comments online, Twitter, all that, and all social media about, like saying, oh, like, look, how well Schaefer's doing. And he's very entertaining. He's going to be a very good player. But they're saying, the comparisons that some people were trying to make, like, if he made it to an NHL right away, so the Flyers are already, there's people out there are already calling him a bust. And it's kind of ridiculous.
Don't even listen to, get off Twitter. That's what I'm learning. That's just so stupid. It's insane. A guy being a bust that just turned 19. Mm-hmm. Give me a break. That, it's the dumbest thing in the world. People, you should have your account suspended for being so stupid and thinking things like Matthew Schaefer has nothing to do with Jett Luchanko. No. And Matthew Schaefer's looked great. He looks like he's 12 years old facially, but his body looks like that of a 26-year-old, and he plays like a 26-year-old. Some games players are way more mature than others, and you can portend a guy to what he's going to be at the pro game sometimes by his junior numbers and sometimes not. Look at Alan McCall. He was a CHL player of the year. I mean, a guy could not score when he was in the CHL. At the NHL, he couldn't score. There's transferable skills, and so that's beyond stupid to think that he's a bust already. I mean, he literally turned 19 in August.
I think it's the mentally, because it's 2 years, he should be up already, and you don't realize how young the player is. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, look, and not the arc of development is not an exact science. It's not. It never will be. And you'll see players take step forwards and take step backwards and turn out to be great players. You look at the arc of development of a guy like Nikita Kucherov. I use it a lot to compare it to what maybe the arc of development could be for Michkov, because they're very similar. And it took the year 4 before he became a point per game player. Now what did he pile up last year? 141?
Crazy.
He's got 128 in there. Like every year, they're disgusting. But so it didn't happen right away. So, I mean, come on, it's just absurd.
Yeah, and it also, applying practical experience with the work ethic that you develop being around the best people in a good situation. It all comes together, and the guy hopefully will top out. I hope that Jett will be like a 2C. It's certainly possible, but if he spends a little more time with guys like Adam Oates or somebody like that in the offseason, that would really be a good thing. I think really open up his game. Very similar.
No better
players.
Playmaker than Adam Oates. I mean, geez, guy was an assist machine. Better
skater, that's for sure. Yeah. That's one thing he's got. But one thing we got to talk about, there's a reason why the Flyers are, quasi 500, at least in hockey terms right now. It's got to be the goaltending. And it's just a totally different story. I mean, just look at a game like when they were in Ottawa, they lost 2-1. Last year, that's a 5-1, 6-1 game. There's a couple goals that get by. The team gets deflated. You're not having that this year. And Sam Erson's performance this past Saturday afternoon, notwithstanding, where he made some fantastic saves to keep the Flyers in the game. It looks like Dan Vladar, if there's an early competition here, has really jumped out into the league. And if you look at some of the numbers like goals saved above expectation and things like that, he's clearly got an edge right now. And we can clearly see the difference.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is probably going to get my goalie union card revoked, but it's not just the goalies, where you always hear me and people say, well, you're an apologist for the goaltenders when, they're piling up numbers. But no, I mean, team defense and goaltending go hand in hand. And, bad goaltending can help pull down bad defense, and bad defense can help pull down bad goaltending. And the converse is also, if you have good, predictable surroundings environment for a goalie, it's the best situation. And what we're seeing in the league right now, the effect of advanced analytics so much, and this is where I think it's really come into play for the biggest part of the game that's noticeable to the casual fan, is the quantity versus quality shots. I mean, you see shot totals that are so much lower in the NHL. I mean, the Flyers had 2 games back-to-back against the Wild and the Jets, 14 and 16 shots allowed. Like, that's crazy low numbers. You see that then the next game we saw that they gave up 13 in a period against Ottawa in the first period. It's a crazy number, right? But it's not about that number. And we have to readjust, I think, our expectations a little bit in that regard too, that it's not a volume business anymore for goaltending, which is a whole nother thing that the goalies are going to have to adapt to, because not feeling, touching the puck, making saves, and getting a good amount of quantity, especially early in a game, is very difficult for a goalie. Like Vladar in that one game only saw 3 shots in the first period. So that's not, or Erson in the game Saturday against the Islanders only saw 3 against. That's not easy to really feel like you're engaged in the game when you don't get your hands on the puck. And I know there's attempted shots, and that's an element of goaltending. I mean, the thing that ultimately leads to exhaustion is zone time and possession. But Vladar's looked refined since he got here. I thought he earned the start on opening day. He's been good as advertised, but I think this is an ongoing battle that just goes on all year, that we kind of see. And Vladar laid down an early resume. That's why I thought Saturday's game against the Islanders was so important for the team. I thought that the Saturday's game was really important for like a litany of reasons. I almost did like a whole episode on the effect of Saturday's game, because you went down 2-0, you came back, you tied it 2-2. You went down 3-2, you came back, you tied it at 3. You got it to overtime in a shootout, and you won it in the shootout. You saw your goaltender make a save, and after it's tied at 3 in the third period, that save on Drouin on the 2-on-1, the blockers team. Just incredible. Fantastic tracking and play reading. And then the glove save in overtime. Like, people see that and go, that's the lucky save. Baloney, that's worked on. I've talked about the spread a ton, and watching those guys work on the spread going back to when Carter Hart was here. And that exact save it's a sprawl. Like Sam downplayed it in his post-game interview too. And the guy's going to pass. You're going over and you're lunging, but there's so many technical aspects to that are executed beautifully, which is why he makes the save. Like, where's the glove? Right above the pad. right? It's right above, and what's it doing? It's moving forward. So as it moves forward, my hand gets bigger. You see less of it. You see less of my background. So you're just giving the shooter less by everything coming forward. Like that's a technical save in what looks like a situation where you're in desperation, because you've worked on that muscle memory of it so repeatedly. And that's an enormous save. The play that Vladar makes in overtime to keep the puck alive when overtime's all about possession, and Drysdale skates himself out of jail, and then they go down. Forster drops it off for Cates, but Tyson doesn't just stop. He drives the defender down low, letting Cates like it's these little micro details that have you at 4-3-1 as opposed to 2-5-1 and gave up 15 more goals last year.
Yep.
The game is that refined. It's crazy, but this goaltending thing, it's great. I think it's a healthy competition. I had them both on last week to do this October Saves initiative that we're doing for cancer research and stuff.
That was awesome. Yeah.
And like I've known Sam for a while. Just getting to meet and kind of understand Vladar a little bit. And it's different because he's Czech. So, he's a guy from the Czech Republic. So it's a little different to kind of, there's idiosyncrasies to a guy that's from the Czech Republic that I don't know about, but, we're learning to have like a relationship, he's learning about me, I'm learning about him, and seeing the things that he does in net and tendencies and all that. And I think it's a real healthy situation. And I hope those two push each other all year long, because who gets the benefit of that? The team does, the fans do, because you get winning hockey out of it. Because you got guys that are really sharp all the time, because that position, there's only one stinking net you can defend in a game. It's not like a winger, it's not like a D, it's not like a center where you rotate lines. There's only one, and both of those guys want it, but both of those guys want to earn it, and there's no entitlement. That's the difference between last year and this year. There was entitlement back there. Maybe Fedotov had it to a degree, although it didn't show it. Kolosov certainly showed it. But removing that and competing for that crease is a whole different story. It makes a huge difference. And the environment's been much better. They protect the middle of the ice with the top third of the NHL teams in the league right now. That's just the way it's been. You protect the middle of the ice, you make that job a lot easier on a goaltender.
Yeah, it was great to see after that huge save that Vladar, or that Urson made in overtime. You could just see how excited Vladar was over at the bench. I think that was the moment where he was just going wild over on the bench, and you can tell
banging the blocker on the board.
Like this is true excitement for the guy that you're competing for time with. And one of the things I think that has hurt Urson the last few years has been how much time he's had to play, right? With the Carter Hart thing, and then with how Fedotov and Kolosov didn't work out. And now I think we're going to see a situation where it's going to be very close to an even split. I mean, right now, Vladar will probably get more of the starts. I'm sure there will be a time of the year where Urson is really in the zone and maybe he gets a few more of the starts. But it certainly looks like, barring anything unforeseen, that that these guys will split start slot, which also will really help both of them stay mentally sharp. So, everything that Jason talked about, the way that these guys kind of connect, they root for each other. I think there's a recipe there to be a really good tandem for the rest of the year, and I'm excited for them. I've talked about with Vladar how he kind of was behind two guys who the organization's viewed as the guy, right? He was behind Jeremy Swayman in Boston. He was behind Dustin Wolf in Calgary. Now he's got a chance, at least for a few years, to be somewhere where he could be the guy, right? And I think it's great.
Yeah, and the other thing too is when the team believes in the guys back there, like we saw it the year that Carter left, before he left in January, when the team believed it, they were the number 2 transition team in the NHL. You weren't afraid to take chances because you knew you had a guy back there who could bail you out. When you feel like you got that guy back there, you just play offensively more free of mind and take more chances, and you can justify it, and you're confident. And when you're not, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy to pull the puck out of your net every time you make a mistake. And that's been a big difference too. And I think like we kind of just see that maybe there's no analytic or stat for that confidence, but you can see it in the way they play, and it just looks different. And you go by the eye test, you can see that that's the case when the team really believes in the guy that's back there, that he can bail them out on an odd man rush if things don't go right. If I take this chance in the neutral zone or at the blue line or whatever.
And I think, that I just wanted to cover one more topic after this, but to finish up, I do think, though, if by Christmas we see similar performances, and we don't know that between now and 2 months, whatever it's going to be. I do think that it looks like Taka is going to ride the hotter hand. And it's not impossible. We could see like a 45 or 50 game kind of.
Yeah, I think it's about your peak. About 46 could be like the high for one of the guys.
Okay. Based on their history.
You're going to get into, yeah, I mean, and I think it like that 46 is probably the number for me because if you look at the schedule, you start to see back-to-backs. Like we're going to see a back-to-back.
Yeah, that's right. Real compacted.
I think you're going to, they haven't been in this compact zone yet. They've had, I think, one back-to-back now, but they're going to have
one
like
the 4 and 6?
Yeah, then you're getting into the 4 and 6, and then you're getting into, 7 and 11 days and travel, and they've been in the home building so much, so it's been a little easier to kind of manage now. I think you split this week, these 4 games this week right down the middle, right down the pot. I don't know who you go with tomorrow night against Pittsburgh. Pick one. I don't care. All I know is Vladar gets one of the 2 games either Tuesday or Thursday and Sunday against Calgary, and that Ersson gets either Tuesday or Thursday and Saturday. I'd probably go Vladar against Pittsburgh, Ersson Thursday, then Ersson Saturday, and then Vladar Sunday. That's probably what I would do.
Gotcha. So before, I know, you got to split, you got some things you got to take care of tonight. I had to mention Trevor Zegras busting out with 2 goals and an assist. And there's a lot of discussion about his hybrid positioning as a center. He's basically not really taking faceoffs, but when sometimes he's a high guy, sometimes he's a low guy. And this is where the Dvorak acquisition really has come in handy. And it's been a really effective line. We're just waiting for that other guy to show up. But this Trevor Zegras in the locker room, on the ice, has been about as good as we could hope for.
Better. I think he's been better than I could hope for. I didn't expect him to assimilate this quickly. And the reason I say that is not because of the goals. It's because of the assists. Some of like the pass he makes to Couturier against Florida from behind the net where he slips the 2 guys, and then he makes the diagonal from behind the goal line low to high play, which makes the low to high play nightmare for a goalie. Because if you're looking down below, you don't know what's behind you in the trigger positions. But when you go cross ice on a low to high play, even worse.
And it was off the backhand too, right?
Yeah,
made it even more incredible.
Yeah, it makes it more unlikely, and you're reading that as a goalie too. Like that play, that's a ridiculous pass. The pass to Dvorak for the goal, where Dvorak's got to take the option of either tipping it or gathering and then beating an outstretched goalie, which is what he did against Sorokin. The no-look pass, literally from the blue line, is a pretty ridiculous pass. That looked like a nothing burger rush. And I give credit to Michkov there too, because he's waiting for the late guy. He loves the late guy. Late guy doesn't come. They just stretch him out all the way across the blue line, and they turn nothing into something. That's what great players do. I mean, we know of his skills, but everything I've heard about him from behind the scenes and through the media, whether it was him telling Ashlyn Sullivan and NBC Sports Philly that he feels like he's been here his whole career, or that he's texting Rick Tocchet about film that he wants to watch. When I see that stuff, I see a guy that's just all in. And when you're doing that thing that Danny and Keith Jones talked about years ago of, we got to find those guys that have high skill but need to change the scenery. This is what you hope for. Yeah. Is that the guy, because there's a lot of times you get that guy. Like, how many times was a guy like Nail Yakupov moved? In that same thing, like diminishing value each time. But he wasn't willing to put in the work. He didn't want to be great. This guy seems to want to be great. So he's putting in the work and buying in completely. And does it help that Cam York and Jamie Drysdale, who are some of his tightest friends off the ice, are here? Yeah, absolutely it does. I don't care if guys are friends, growing up together to build a team. That's not a requirement for me. But in this case, it does help him feel more comfortable right away. And I think he's gotten off the ball here rolling really good, and it's been really impressive. And again, I talk about like the things, there's little things too, about what he's saying, how he carries himself, how he's practicing, how receptive he is to coaching and a new system and all of that. He's kind of hit it on every single level that you want him to hit on. And so far, small sample size, 8 games, home run. I mean, who wouldn't trade Ryan Poehling for him right now?
Yeah. So my question would be this: there was a fear when Frost and Farabee were traded that locker room was going to take a hit. How important do you think it was? I mean, it's showing with the goalies how good the locker room is, and it's showing with Trevor too. That knowing these people, it seems like the locker room is just as good as it was under Torts. So I think that's a testament to the new coaching staff as well. I do believe, right?
Well, no, I think it's to the team leaders. I think it's to guys like Travis Sanheim and Travis Konechny and Sean Couturier and Garnet Hathaway. Guys like I think those guys deserve the credit for that, because ultimately players seek the approval most, and the most impactful approval is from another player. It's just the way it is. The guy that skates next to you, those kind of things. So I think that thing about the locker room falling apart when Frost and Farabee and even Lawton were traded, I think that was overstated a little bit. I looked at it more as excuse making than I did reality, because these are pros. Like, you're getting paid a lot of money. Like, no time for sulking. It's part of the gig. It's like you sign up to be in the mob. Yeah, your buddy might get clipped. This is the bit we chose. This is the business we've chosen. Like, all the thing. Like, these could happen at any day. You could be shipped out. Somebody else could. It's all part of it. So culture, but has to be strong enough to handle that. And I think that ultimately culture has to be rebuilt every year too. Like, it doesn't travel year to year. There's a new dynamic every year, because the locker room is never the same as it was the year before, whether because of turnover and also because of what you're asking those people to do is their job. Sometimes that changes. Guys elevate. Some guys fall in the pecking order. This guy moved to the power play 1 to power play 2. So everything changes. The whole dynamics change. So I think that's something that has to organically be built every year. And I think and again, I go back to that Islander game this week. I think it was a big, big pillar of your foundation of your culture, and I think it tees you up for. I have this week circled on the schedule, not in just black ink. This is in red marker. This 4 games, because it sends you into November. If you can get 6 out of the 8 available points this week, or 7 of the 8, God willing, 8 out of the 8, your home record would be 8-1. You're going into November in a really good spot, and having beaten some really good teams we didn't even think would be good, like Seattle. So this is a really big week for the Flyers.
Yeah, with one thing organizationally, with with the addition of Zegras, you kind of look at things, and I've got on one side, I've always felt like this Flyers franchise the last 6-7 years has got a number of things that are hard for an organization to recover from, right? Like taking Nolan Patrick when you luck out and you get that number 2 pick, and it's basically a complete whiff. That's a thing that's hard to come back from, especially when you're not getting a lot of early picks. Additionally, we'll see how the Jamie Drysdale Cutter Gauthier situation works out, but having a guy who you take that highly, who ends up demanding me traded, right? That's a whiff. So in my mind, there have sort of been more whiffs than positives that have come out of it. However, now I would put the Zegras one as a major advantage, right, for the Flyers, where you take a risk on this player and you don't have to give up a whole lot. Like, I love what Ryan Poehling brought, but
I can find another Ryan Poehling.
Yeah, right, exactly. You can find another Ryan Poehling, but what they're getting out of Trevor Zegras for the price that they paid is something that sort of, in my mind, restores the balance of the things that this team needs to go well. So if he can keep doing this and he, becomes a mainstay in this organization for a long time, that's one of the ways that I kind of view it in my head, is that and getting Michkov, right, at pick number 8, right? We're sort of equalizing things, and at a position where that's just kind of like the way it works in my head.
Look at Martone too, right, Dan?
Getting Martone, and we'll see how that works out. He scored a spectacular goal this past weekend. Incredible top shelf snipe from a weird angle. I mean, he's a really good player. but 22 penalty minutes so far is nasty too. So yeah, I think that we're starting to restore the balance a little bit.
There's tipping points, right? Like sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, and like I always say too, like it's not that you suck; it's you got to suck at the right time. You know what I mean? Like sucking at the right time is a little lucky. Sometimes teams suck, and it just doesn't matter. It doesn't help them. And like the Flyers got all the luck in the world in 2017 to move up to 2, and there was no way they were taking McCarr there. Heiskanen would have been the pick, other than Nolan Patrick. But I mean, Patrick was the consensus number 1 all year until he got hurt in March. And bloodlines looked like he was poised for the NHL. And you're right, it's so hard to recover from those mistakes in today's league. Like you just can't make them. You can't make mistakes and get away with it and just kind of fix it with a Band-Aid anymore. You got to bleed out on the mistake before you can kind of move forward again. And this last 5 years has kind of we've been bleeding out, But now Michkov slips because supposedly he's not going to come over, right? But he comes over 2 years early. And he has the year he had last year with 26 goals. We know the numbers. And then Martone drops and, all of these other variables. It just feels like and then you go out and you make one of those high-skilled trades for a high-skilled player that needs to change the scenery, and he's hitting the ground running. And he just happens to be the guy that was on the video game cover a few years ago. Like I tell people, go to the games and go early for warm-up and watch what he does on the dot with the puck. It looks like it's in a lacrosse stick. It's ridiculous how skilled, like his hands and like the control he has of the puck with the mitts he has. It's insane. So, and I think like the fans kind of feel it too. Like there's been a tipping point here. Like things finally feel like they're moving in the right direction. They told us we were going to do these things. We were skeptical that they would. They actually did most of the things without being too specific. And it feels like there's a lot on the come here. And then you combine that with, like we did the rookie games this year. There was actually like 5 or 6 guys in the rookie games that you go could be actual Flyers that play more than 200 games. Like 3 years ago, there was like maybe one, maybe like Wade Allison or something in that game. You know what I mean? So that part feels different too. So it just feels like it's in a lot healthier place than it was in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jason, I think we got to let you go now. You got some obligations. And really appreciate you stopping by. You're ubiquitous, but you want to tell some people about some things you have coming up. Now's a good time. Yeah,
I'm just doing the season and doing all the games. I'm hoping to make a pregame tonight. I'm hoping I'm like out of my anesthesia fog by that point for this all 32 night with 16 games going on, the Equinox. So I'm looking forward to this week. I think it's gonna be fun. We'll have Fun on Flyers Daily talking about it and writing about it on Crossing Broad. I don't even know what I got going on. I got so much going on. It's insane. But doing some radio again with John Marks, the Fanatic, and that's been fun to do some of, not all of. But yeah, just happy to be getting back into the swing of things.
Sure. And again, I just officially for the show, congratulations on your latest health news, and hopefully that will continue.
Congrats.
Yeah, we're hoping. It's been one wicked journey that's beat the hell out of me, but we're gonna keep pushing forward, and we've got some good results, and we're gonna hope that continues, and keep fighting like hell every day, and help as many people as we can along the way.
Yeah, God bless you, man.
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah. Thanks, boys.
All right, take care.
You got it. You take care.
Oh, I just want to say, I throw my brother into that mix. Me, we were talking about it before the show, me and him, me and Jason, and my brother had it into my brother Kevin, and his cancer, it came back probably 6 months ago. And I was just going back and forth with Jason, and it was a really big plus that they both get it the same week, no evidence of disease. So that was awesome for both of them. So.
Oh, fantastic. Awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Great. Good to hear, Chef.
Yeah. That's some good karma too. Yeah. That's really great. We're gonna stick with the topics, and we'll get to the games that we didn't really. I kind of think we covered the Islander game, but there's so many storylines right now. We want to get to that, but before we do that, just a reminder that we are brought to you by Jim South Street, 400 South Street in Philadelphia. 40 years of the best cheesesteaks and hoagies and fries in the grandest Philadelphia tradition. You want one? I could go for one right now. So Jim South Street, 400 South Street in Philadelphia, PA. And if you have a DoorDash or Uber Eats and you're in the neighborhood, by all means, pick up the phone, pay the freight. It's worth it. I think you really will. Just tell them the O&B Puckcast and Flyers Nitty Gritty sent you over there.
I wish I could.
Game, November 8th, I'll probably stop there with my mom for a cheesesteak before the game. I can't wait. It's just the best spot.
I wish I could chew one right now, but I'll probably end up with scrambled eggs. But either way, you got to enjoy it. They're the best, and that it's chef stamped right there. It's the best in the city, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that when I get back to Philly, if I can make it down there. That's for sure. So we covered Jett and Zegras and the Flyers goaltending, improved goaltending. We're all worried about Matvei Michkov. Dan, I think this is simply a case of a guy who was not in shape, whether he hurt his ankle or he was kind of resting on his laurels maybe a little bit, having a good time. Hey, I had a good first year. Everything's going great. I'm not sure. We don't know the real story. We heard this and that. He works hard when he gets in the building. He still wants to be great. But let's just say if he prepared as well as Connor Bedard did in the offseason, I don't think we'd be seeing the Michkov we're seeing so far.
Yeah, and I don't even want to call it a red flag because honestly, we don't even know sort of what happened and why he came in out of shape. Maybe it had to do with the ankle injury or whatever, but he's just proven to be such a hard worker in general in terms of the work he puts on, certainly on the ice. And what we've heard about him off the ice with the work that he puts in, I'm a little surprised that, you'd think that a guy coming in for a second NHL season would want to be in tip-top shape. But again, I don't know everything behind it, right? I don't know what was going on. Certainly willing to give him a pass. He's starting to round into form a little bit. And I think that line with him and Zegras and Dvorak has been really good. And it was sort of, Tocchet always talks about duos, but that line certainly seems like something that could stay together now. So I'm expecting good things from him the rest of the season. He still does things I think that Rick Tocchet and coaches in general probably wouldn't like. I mean, some of these shorthanded 2-on-1s against, he's sort of been a little bit to blame partially for some of them. And Rick Tocchet has kind of talked about they can't allow that many 2-on-1s when they're on the power play. So I still think there's going to be some growing pains with him, but nothing that I'm sort of extremely worried about at this point.
Chef?
I'm not like Dan. I'm in the camp. I'm not worried about it. I really do think there is an ankle issue because if you notice, if you go back and look at his skating, it's a little bit off. He doesn't have the stride that he did last year. It's very little. It's very little off. I'm not making excuses. I just think we knew he was going to take a little hit in sophomore thing, because once they figure you out in the NHL, they know how to beat you. Everybody watches film. Everybody got their little iPads before the games and all that, and even in the game. So I'm not necessarily worried about that. I think it's an adjustment period for him too, because when he has been in the games, I mean, he had that pass to Zamula in one game that was just like hit him right in stride and Zamula backdoored. I think it was Zegras first goal, I think, right? Yeah. So and then you see, he, like Jason said, he likes to wait for the late guy. I just think as it continues, as the season progresses and he's feeling better and he's, hey, he's getting a little more confident too. I think we'll see those numbers start steadily going up. But overall, I'm not concerned right now. It's just way too early and second year guy, it happens.
Yeah, I would just say the best word to describe how I feel is disappointed. You see guys like Bobby Brink, who is a pretty good skater. I don't think he has the control, but his acceleration, he's actually very fast when he gets going. His first couple of steps aren't great, but he can really skate. And he went from really a minus skater to, I would consider now, a plus skater, although his lateral mobility still is not that great. You see a guy who makes that kind of improvement, who I think is so much less talented than Michkov. That was the one area I was counting on Michkov to improve in. So maybe improve upon, I should say. But maybe it was the ankle. I don't know. I'm just, like I said, disappointed. We'll have to watch. He did pot a goal finally in that. I think it was the Winnipeg game. He got the goal. So that was a rough game. But we'll get to that. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Speaking of Bobby Brink, there's a lot of people who don't see a future for Bobby Brink in the Flyers with all the wingers, and it just begs the question. He's a good player. He's probably the least consistent of that Cates line, and yet he's a good player, and that's the best line the Flyers have, which, considering what you're expecting from Michkov and another guy I'm kind of down on right now, Travis Konechny, is not really the best thing, but I'm not going to damn with faint praise Bobby Brink. He's really improved, and from game to game, you see him battling for pucks. I remember, Chef, that there was a point at which John Tortorella said, I guess it was 2 years ago now, that Bobby Brink didn't really even know how to check. Now he's one of their better checkers. I guess he watched Noah Kate. Yeah, it's crazy.
No, you look at the games they play. I can't. The amazing. They're like a rotating triangle on the forecheck. If you haven't noticed that, look. I never played organized hockey, but I sit there and I see. It's the weird thing is you watch a game, and if you watch enough of them, you can predict where they're going to be on a forecheck. If you look at it, so it just spins around. So I think it's his determination. I think it's the system. And I think the fact that he trusts his line mates, he knows they're always talking on the bench. They're always talking. You see the hands go, like, when I go here, you go here, or whatever it is. I don't know if that's what they're saying, but I'm just guessing. But yeah, I just sit there and I think somebody, he took all the criticism over the years that was given to him by the coaches and whoever, and he really took it to heart and he worked on everything. And I think it's phenomenal. More power to him. I think he's turned into a very solid player.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, him and another guy has really been a whipping boy, Drysdale. And Dan, if you want to talk about Brink, but I wanted to get into Drysdale as well. I mean, I don't think he's ever going to be a big point producer, but defensively, his stick on puck, his positioning, using his speed to shut down plays, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, so first, real quick on Brink. I agree that he's been really impressive, and he's always a guy that he strikes me as having sort of intangibles that I could see him scoring some big goals down the road. Problem is that, they signed Konechny to this big contract, and they signed Tippett to this big contract. Tippett's been playing pretty well recently, but I don't think you can keep Konechny, Michkov, Tippett, Forster, Martone, Brink, Barkey, Grabankin. Like, there's going to have to be some decisions made at some point. And at some point, they're probably going to have to move out some of these wingers in a deal to either get a defenseman or a center. So we'll have to see what happens. I think they're, at this point, especially with the way the team's playing right now, they're probably okay with letting it ride out. And if some team wants to blow off the doors with an offer for one of these guys, they'll entertain it. And in many ways, it's better to be trading from a position of strength, right? Hey, we don't have to move Owen Tippett. We don't have to move Bobby Brink. But as opposed to like what they've done with guys like Shane Gostisbehere, who they basically have to, they devalue them so much that they can barely get anything. So we'll see what happens there. I just don't think they're in any rush. Drysdale has been very good defensively. I mean, at some point, they are going to need a defenseman who can be a good power play quarterback. And I feel like Drysdale was, when they acquired him, my guess is that they had some expectations that he might be that big play driving offensive defenseman. Maybe they still time for him to do that, but we haven't seen it yet. So it's good that he's been better defensively. And I think Rick Tocchet likes the way he's playing, but I still think we need that power play one guy. Maybe Cam York could even still develop into that guy, right? I mean, he had a 2-assist game the other night, 2 or 3-assist game the other night. He looked pretty good.
Looks solid, yeah.
Their top 4 looks very solid when all the guys are healthy. York, Sanheim, Sealer, Drysdale, they're all playing very well. They're going to have to figure out a way, I think, to get someone who can be aggressive on the point on the power play. And that's why last year I loved Emil Andre in that spot. I don't know what his future is with the organization, and he's probably not ultimately that guy. But the Islanders got a guy in Matthew Schaefer by lucking into the #1 pick, who you can already see what he brings to that team, even strength, power play, all over the ice. I think the Flyers at some point are going to have to try and figure out a way to not get someone like that, just like that, but someone that can at least run a top power play unit.
A facsimile of some type.
Yeah. Dan, I got a question. Now, let's see, over the years, you've seen players, especially defensemen, bloom a little bit later. I think that they've got his defense finally, because Drysdale's defense has been up and down. It's been quite erratic, since we acquired him. So it's been up and down a little bit. Now, you think that after they get him settled with that, it seems like he's settling in. Do you think the second half of the season, we saw it with Noah Cates when he came over, and they wanted more. They wanted more when he brought him up, I should say. When he was playing defense, shutting down top lines, McDavid in a couple games and all that back last 2 years, that he finally started, when he got all that set and was comfortable, he finally started to start producing goals. Do you think that, and I know defensemen and forwards are different, but do you think that can still translate that part of it?
I mean, it's way too early to be giving up on that in a player like that. I personally haven't seen the kind of offensive creativity and aggressiveness from him at all that would lead me to believe that it's there. Whereas a guy like Cam York, he used to make plays in college and with the U.S. national development team that I would still argue that I think Cam York may still have higher offensive upside than Drysdale, because I think that he can be a little bit more aggressive sometimes. He doesn't have the shot really at this point that you want in a defenseman, but neither does Drysdale. So neither does really anyone on that team other than maybe Travis Sanheim, but he's not really as much of a lateral mover as he is kind of like a north-south, or I guess what it is, back and forth type of skater, straight line speed. He's not your prototypical power play defenseman, but maybe Drysdale can still develop that offensive side. But I've seen more potential from York than either of those guys. It's a shame they didn't, Sam Dickinson didn't fall to them a few years ago. But
different ball game. If they got a hold of him, I would have given up a lot. I'll put it that way. I would have backed up the Brinks truck because I've said, and people probably tired of hearing me say it. I mean, they knew that kid inside and out. Every time they scouted Bonk, they saw his partner, who's actually a better player with a higher upside. At least that's the way it looks like. Drysdale, it looks like a 30-point defenseman is the ceiling, but 30, 35 points. But if you look at the, not so much Corsi, but expected goals and things like that for Drysdale, it's all positive. I don't want to just spit out numbers with 8 games in or whatever it is, but it's it's on a really good trend. Let's put it that way. But I think the other big thing is, like you mentioned, Chef Dan mentioned, at some point with this surfeit of wingers that they have and young defensemen of a certain ceiling, it looks like the Flyers are shaping up to make some kind of deal, whether it be for a center, and I think more likely a defenseman, because I think they're going to go the quantity route down the middle, barring an unexpected availability of a top center. I think defense, where they're going to make a Pronger type trade to get a hold of someone, I don't know who it is. They've mentioned Darlene, somebody was spitballing, I think it was Anthony DeMarco, and obviously Byram from Buffalo, the other defenseman. Something's got to happen. But I don't think Byram has scored more than 40 points up to this point in his career either.
Well, look at it like this too. You look at the logjam of guys of good, and let's say it like we always say, NHL players to play 200 games or more. It looks like they have a crop of players that are going to achieve that. So this is a good problem to have right now, because then it paired with picks that you might accumulate along the way, you can parlay this into, and into a defenseman, because I really feel like that is the most important thing right now. If you look around the league, the only thing and I'd argue it, how many true number one defensemen versus true number one centers in the league, and I would weigh out the centers. The centers are probably, there's more of them than there are the D-men. So I think their focus is going to be on the D, because they're going anything you grow homegrown is not going to fit your timeline. So you're going to have to import that, in my opinion.
Yeah, add to that the fact that all these guys are re-signing with their clubs with all the extra cap space and unrestricted free agents that doesn't really seem like it's going to be the direction that they'll have avail to them. So there was some injury news today when Danny Briere was giving the Jett Luchanko news about Ristolainen 4 to 6 weeks from now. That seems pretty certain. And then Oliver Bonk, I just hate that you don't know what it is. They don't want anybody going for the injury. When I hear something like this, I think either some kind of like oblique or shoulder.
Yeah.
They think he's on a similar track as Ristolainen, but he was not as definitive with a timeline with Bonk as he was with Ristolainen. So I'm not really sure. And with Bonk, it's a tough way to begin your career, but he wasn't going to play here anyway, Dan.
It feels like it's going to be a lost season for Bonk. I mean, he started out in September as day-to-day, and now all of a sudden he's week to week and 5 to 6 weeks away. And I'm just sort of expecting to hear that he's going to need some kind of shoulder surgery, or I don't even know what the issue is with him, but that's my expectation, is he's going to have some kind of surgery. I have no inside knowledge at all, and maybe that's not the case, but it just, I don't know what's the injury that's taken this long that can't be, that it's just going to be resolved with rest. I don't know. So we'll see. And then, it'd be nice, Risto would be a nice bump for when this team comes back. He's now at the point too where he's got 2 years left on his contract, and it'd be more likely if he comes back healthy and they could allow them to move him in a package or something else, or maybe, he still has probably another level he could potentially obtain. So he's a guy that I think everyone's forgotten about to a certain degree. And I think that when he comes back, it'll be a nice boost for this squad.
I agree.
Yeah, and I can see that.
Go ahead. No, I agree with Dan. I think that, everybody's kind of put him in the back burner because out of sight, out of mind thing. And I just think that's a possible chance if he comes back and he can play, because we all know it's not a lower body injury. It's an upper body injury. I do believe it's a tricep or bicep. Yeah. So tricep. It's not, it's not something that's going to impede your skating, and you can still, I'm sure he's probably still doing some biking and all this cardiovascular stuff. So I think if he comes back and he makes, more than adequate, showing, I think there's a market for somebody out there. Everybody wants to know you hear it when every podcast, everything, when you talk about Ristolainen is, God, I would love to see that guy in the playoffs, see what he could do in the playoffs. And there's going to be somebody out there that wants to see that too on the opposing team, especially for the right price at the end of a year on expiring contracts or whatever, and to bring them over and test them, especially with only 2 years left, right?
Maybe we'll get to see him in the playoffs in the orange and black. I still think they're so obsessed with size on the blue line that they may not want to move him if he comes back and he's playing well. And
if he's playing well, you're right. Yeah, it could be Andre that gets the bump, or.
Well, I'm thinking if Risto gets back, there's your entree for Emil Andre, because that is a perfect partner for him, as opposed to what they have now, which is kind of like essentially like a ersatz third pair compared to Risto and Andre, who complement each other much better than what they have right now.
Yeah. As much as I hate to say it, Juleson's been all right, but
he's been okay.
Miss that. He's been okay, but you do miss that. Me and Dan were talking, petitioning for those couple games he played, Dan. If you remember, their outside of their own zone were so much better with Andre too. It seemed like he was leading those, I was it 2 games he played? Yeah. So it just seemed like they were getting up ice more, and let's face it, if you're spending more time in the offensive zone, you're spending less time in your own zone. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, that would be a great third pairing. I mean, look, Yinning has been fine, and Zamula has been a little bit better recently. So the defense has not been as big of an issue of late. Hopefully that continues to be the case.
All right.
Yeah.
Isaiah, you talked about Travis Konechny, and he's gotten off to such fast starts each of the last few years, and he's sort of slowed down as the season got into the later stages. I wonder if he's sort of internalized that a little bit and is now maybe not expending as much energy early because he wants to have more energy late in the season. I don't know. I mean, I see some people already trying to write him off online. Yeah. I think that's ridiculous. I think he's still a very talented player. And I want to see how the year goes for him, because I still think he's a very good player.
Yeah, agreed. And also, too, if you notice, he's getting frustrated in these games, too. You see him and the good. And you know what? They're backing each other up when people get checked, especially on their line, too. So I like that as well.
I do think his contract, the last 3 years, is not going to be pretty. I'll put it that way. I am worried about that. But listen, he's a UFA in 2033.
If you get a cup or 2 out of it, I don't care about pretty. I'll still take it to the prom.
We got a lot of work for them to do to even let them make the playoffs. But yeah, I hear you. But they got a long way. One thing of Bill Meltzer, and I think Jason alluded to it, with the end of this homestand by November 12th, they will have already played a quarter of their home season. It will be 11 out of the 41 games. So far, they're 4-1, and these next 4 versus Pittsburgh, Nashville, and then back-to-back versus Toronto and Calgary are really important if you want to establish, being a really good home team and getting into that home groove. Right now is the best time to do that because, like we talked about earlier, they're going to start experiencing what a lot of other teams have because of the compacted schedule with the Olympics coming up. And that's the 4 games in six nights. And which is probably why Jason's right, why we're not going to see a 50-52 game season out of Dan Vladar. It's probably more like 45 or 46 because they're going to need Ursun by default with all the back-to-backs and things like that. So it's a really critical time early on. And look, we're a month away from Thanksgiving. So, make hay now. What do they say? You can't make the playoffs early on, but you can practically play your way out of the playoffs. Yeah. By Thanksgiving, you're out. So right now, they're still within striking distance of having that hope. And that's all we want this season. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. But if they're close and they play meaningful games as they enter, at the end of March and April, that's the best we can hope for. And maybe we'll get a surprise at the end of it. So anybody want to make any comments about some of these games where the Flyers went 3-2? I know the Winnipeg game was a dog. I mean, they were just a classic road game by the Jets, and Ursun was in net. There was always that one goal that we wanted not to get by them. But to be honest with you, Winnipeg won the President's Trophy last year, and you saw why behind that goaltending and that checking, and it was brutal. Then the Flyers lost 5-2. That was a tough one, Chef.
Yeah, I'll say this. What got me all fired up was, obviously the fourth line. I liked Grebenkin and I liked Dobbles and Hathaway. I mean, that's a very fun fourth line to watch. I mean, considering that Grebenkin and Abels have, as far as I know, and maybe Dan knows the players better than me, there's no history of any kind of fighting with that. And then to have the gumption, I guess, not to get pushed around on their line, because the Flyers were starting to get pushed around a little bit. And to their credit, this line stepped up in that game and said, "Not today, Satan, not today." Oh, he doesn't play for them anymore. He was on Buffalo. Never mind. So, but or is it pronounced Satan? So, but anyway, yeah. So I think what impressed me the most was how all lines kind of contribute in that game. And if they're going to proceed forward, they're going to need all lines to contribute like that. And I'm happy now. I don't see how Abels should be sent down or sit from this point on. I think he earned his spot. And I think, and plus he's killing it. He's killing it on faceoffs too. So, and that's something we desperately need help with.
Well, I mean, with Luchanko out, I mean, it's a given. I mean, that line is decent. I wish Gurbenkin has earned a couple spot duties on different lines. I think he had Zegras and Michkov with Gurbenkin at one point. I forget which game, maybe the Seattle game, perhaps. And I might have that wrong, but anyway, so they come back. They had a really, I think in the Wild game, which was after that, it was nice to get that win. And again, Vladar keeps them in the game, and we get the overtime winner from Cates, I believe, after Vladar makes a really good save and Drysdale scrambles and gets the puck up, and Cates makes a really nice play. And the thing is, the game started out like, oh my God, this is more the same from the Winnipeg game. And then the Flyers kind of played better, but then the Wild go and take the lead. So it's like, I don't know what's going on here. So it put the Flyers to get, again, it was the goaltending that really has made the difference this year. There's a couple of wins where it just wouldn't have happened because it's not only the fact that Vladar is playing well, it's when he makes the saves. He's doing both. Ursan, last game against the Islanders, he has that one goal that you don't really like. Well, I don't know if it was the Holmstrom goal or it was the one after that. I think it was the second one. But there was two saves late in the game, made all the difference, and obviously they win the game in the shootout. But again, Vladar is giving them both. So he's making, saves well above expectation at this point. Not well above. I think it's like 2.5 or something like that. I got to look that up. But he's also making saves at key times. So, Dan, the good news game, the fun game, and the last one for Jett Luchanko for this year in the Flyers uniform was the Seattle game. Foster and Tippett, 2 goals each. York gets 3 assists. They get 2 power play goals. It was a fun night.
Yeah, it's nice to see them beating a team soundly that they're supposed to beat, right? I mean, they started off the year against some tough opponents, and that was a good game. I mean, I think that what you mentioned with the goaltending is stable right now, and the way that the defensemen have been playing, if not sort of outstanding offensively, certainly have been very good defensively. It's a stabilizing force, and you've got a few of the lines really clicking. I think we're seeing a team that hopefully will beat some of these teams they're supposed to beat. Now, the Ottawa game on the road, their offense kind of went away. But it's why kind of like you look at the next 7 games, and I think they've got the Penguins, they've got Nashville a few times, they've got Ottawa. I think it's going to be an important stretch to kind of like really set an early tone for what the expectations are the rest of the season, especially when you've got 4 games in a row coming up at home, including Calgary, also arguably the worst team in the league. So you've got the Penguins, Predators, Maple Leafs, who are off to just a so-so start, and Calgary. It's going to be all at home. It's really going to be a chance to kind of make a mark on this early season based on what happens in those games.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. Then, of course, they go to Ottawa, and again, it's Vladar that keeps them in the game. This is a game, the Flyers come out, get that quick goal. I think Tippett is coming off the ice, and Forster comes on and gets a shot right, I think, the top of the slot. It was a little bit high out, but it was a great shot by Forster, and the Flyers off and running. And you think, okay, you're coming off of the momentum of the last game, although it rarely works that way. And you think, okay, in Ottawa is a difficult spot for the Flyers, and they're off and running. And then gradually, you could see it. The Ottawa just started competing harder, and the Flyers just couldn't keep up. They didn't have that extra gear to push through and make a difference. But again, Vladar keeps them in the game that probably would have been, 4 or 5 to 1 last year with the kind of goaltending they were getting, Chef. I mean, that's made all the difference. It's going to keep them in the race for the rest of the way if they keep getting it.
And the point being this too. And look, they're really only the Winnipeg game was really like where they lit it up, and a couple 2 empty net goals in that game too, I think. So it's not like the guys their save percentage has been very good. I mean, pretty good. I mean, even Urson's. I haven't checked. Is he up to 900? He's right up. He's right below it. Yeah, but like Vladar has been awesome. So they're in, and I like Jason said, and alluded to, and others players, and even Meltzer said it too, that the players around the league, the goalies, that number is going to come down. We're going to see that start plummeting until would be right around the 900 mark anyway. So the new standard will probably be 900, the Mendoza line of hockey goalies. But I just think that if they can just get the same, nobody expects them to win these games. They just expect them to do what Ersson did last game. Make the save when it's needed. Make that momentum save. That stop what you can stop. We know you're going to leave. Everybody's going to leave one in once in a while, but just make the momentum stop and save what you're supposed to save.
Yeah, that's pretty much where they're at. I mean, if you look at the stats, I'm going by hockeyreference.com. They have Vladar at 4.5 goals save above expectation, and Ursan is minus 2.9. So, and of course, the disparity in the save percentage. Vladar, again, we're only talking about 5 games, but it's 932, so he's obviously off to a hot start. And Sam is right pretty much where he's been the last couple of years at 861. And we can get him up, and he can be reliable in 30-some games. It's going to help the team. And that's assuming that Vladar can keep up, maybe he'll sink to like 9-10. But the main thing, I think early on especially, the goal saved above expectations is what I'm really going to be focusing in on game by game, even though it's somewhat of a subjective stat. Dan, you have any thoughts on that?
Nothing specific really that comes to mind. I mean,
okay. It's just good to see good goaltending better than the fiasco that was last year.
It is, and when I was talking earlier about sort of the tilting back and forth between things that have gone in the franchise's way and things that haven't.
Right.
I think that Vladar, the trade that they made for him, or the signing, can go in that same category with Zegras, right? Because he's a guy that you got for under market value who is coming in, and we may have our goalie for the next number of years. So, from that perspective, I think that that's such a crucial pickup that they made. And it just moves like the Zegras trade and adding Vladar just do end up giving you more and more confidence in believing in the plan that Danny Briere and Keith Jones and these guys have sort of come up with. So I think from that perspective, it's very encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. And from there, I think we come around to the end of the show. The Flyers play tomorrow night. Well, these are all at home. Pittsburgh, 2 nights later versus the Predators. And then over the weekend, Saturday versus Toronto. That's going to be a tough one. Calgary, maybe some revenge games for some ex-Flyers, but they stunk in Philadelphia more or less last year and most of the year before that. So, hey, who cares? And then we come back and see you on Monday, November 3rd. God, it'll be in November. Wow. And it'll be Thanksgiving on Friday. Aren't we all proud of that? I don't know if you might go to any parties this weekend. Enjoy yourself. So let's get to some last thoughts. I'm getting loopy here. Chef B, you're the one that should be getting a little loopy. What's on your mind before
I'm going to go drink my dinner in a second. So, yeah. So after we're done with this. But, hey, just hang in there. Because let's face it, like one night this team's going to look like it's on fire, and they have the talent now to actually unload on a game, and they could do it. But they also got a lot of younger guys that haven't been proven or steady, so it could go either way. So, you got to watch every time they play. It's going to be fun. It's going to be entertainment. The one thing they're not going to be is boring this season. So you can take that to the bank. And if you want to argue with me about it, that's fine. You want to people throw me shots once in a while, and I stand there and I take them. But hey, it's great, man. Love the Flyers. Let's go Flyers. And you can argue with me at Chef the Left B on Twitter.
You got it, Dan. Last thoughts.
Yeah, the shootout is one of my last thoughts. The Flyers were the worst organization in the shootouts for a long period of time. But now with Trevor Zegras and Michkov, and we saw it against the Islanders, I mean, the goals that both of them scored, Zegras just made it look so easy. And he's like 22 for 40 career shootout. It might even be better than that.
Or something.
With him and Michkov, I think that we're going to be winning a lot of shootouts, which is it's a big deal because a lot of games go to shootouts these days. So I think that's something I'm excited about. With we're going to pick up a few extra points. Folks can follow me on X and on Bluesky at DSilver88, the 88 for Eric Lindros.
Yeah,
of course.
I'll tell you what, though, if there's a prop bet out there somewhere, the over-under on how many times they go, if you can find it, dude, I would take the over 28 as the team record for the amount of times they went to overtime in one season. I think that was in hold on, let me look at my notes here. I thought it was like I thought I had the year written down, but I would take the over because it's looking to be like they're going to be in a lot of more games than they're not going to be in. And it's going to come down to a wire. And I just really think that they're going to get a lot of overtime points this year. So.
Okay. Well, I hope so. You can follow the O&B Puckcast on X and Bluesky at O&B Puck and O&B Puck, also on GETTR at O&B Puckcast. And you can follow us on several podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, iHeart, TuneIn. And of course, we're on YouTube and Facebook. And just type in O&B Puck and it'll pop right out for you. And if you can follow and subscribe, like we mentioned earlier, whatever applies to your platform, we really do appreciate. It will help move us up the charts when people are looking for a Philadelphia Flyer podcast. So that's all we have for you tonight. Until next time, everybody, thanks for listening and take care.